So I've prepared just a really simple SVG file to demonstrate this. If I open it in Safari, it's just a bunch of squares. Now I'm going to continue working with this in brackets. You can see it here. Here are my squares. Here's the code. To do the animation, like before, I need to individually close these, I guess, path elements now with a separate closing tag. So that way I can actually put the animate elements or tag in between the two. So animate, need attribute type, which is going to be XML, attribute name, which would be something in here like the stroke or the fill or something like that. So we'll go with stroke, I suppose. From and to, which would be what I want it to change from what to what. So this could be the yellow, so FF F200 is what it currently is. Oops, there we go. And maybe it changes to, I don't know, just red. And then we need a begin and a duration, and that's really all that we need to start with. So let's make this 1 second or something. Now without the begin, it should just automatically happen. There we go. So you could see it there. It just happened right away, and it's just repeating. So if I undo that and delete it again, there you go. You can see it. It just happens automatically. Now we don't have a repeat in there, so it just happens the once and it's done, but you can see it worked. Now instead of leaving begin out or having it happen automatically, we can have it happen on mouse over, and it's really easy. Actually, all we do is we just type mouse over in here for the begin, and now when I hover over it, there we go. It happens, right? Now using this same idea, I can take this same tag and I can play with a few other things as well. So like, let's say that I want to do something with this red square, right? Or red path, I suppose. So we close it separately. I can paste in that animate tag that I used before. And so maybe this one now changes the stroke width, right? And I can just have it change from one thing to another. Right now it's 3, and maybe it changes to 100 or something extreme. It can happen over 3 seconds, right? So now this one, it gets rather large. And then it jumps back, right? So if you don't want it to jump back, we can tell it that we want the fill to freeze. And then what will happen is when it finishes, it stops, right? Now if I put my mouse back over that object again, it sort of resets this, it re-triggers this, right? So you can see it kind of bounces, kind of resets, and depending on how I do it, you can get sort of a bounce effect, which is kind of how it is. Now in addition to mouse over, there's also mouse out. So if I go to this next square, or blue square, and we close that separately, and I can paste in that same animate, instead of mouse over, this could be mouse out. And let's change this to match that same blue. So 00 AEEF, and it could change to, it doesn't really matter what, we can go with red, sure, why not? And just like before, if we want multiple things to change, like we want the stroke color and the stroke width, then we just need to add in multiple animate elements. So this could change from 3 to 15 or something less ridiculous than before. So nothing's happening, right? Nothing's happening, but that's because it was mouse out. So when the user puts their mouse over it, they're not going to see anything, but as soon as they take it off, that's when the animation actually happens. Now once again, it reverts back when it finishes. Now this didn't revert back until we took the mouse off. And that was because the mouse was still in the position that triggered the animation. With this, the mouse isn't in, well, it is, but it works a little different. So once again, if we want it to actually stay that way, we can tell it to do fill freeze again, and that will cause it to stay that way. Now I only applied fill freeze to the first animation, so the color stayed, but the thickness did not. So we have to make sure that we do this to both animate elements if we want them both to be affected. And finally, this last one. So what do we want to do with this one? So once again, I will delete the slash from that tag, and instead of it being self-closing, we'll add a closing tag to it, and I'll paste in, oh no, that's okay. We can paste that in. There we go. Missed the closing tag there, that's why it was angry for a moment. And what do we want to change here? Maybe here we'll change some of these points to something weird. And we'll see what happens, because why not, I guess. I have no idea where these are going to go. But it doesn't matter. It'll still work. So instead of doing mouse out or mouse over, I'm going to do mouse over, but I'm going to do something a little different. So each one of my paths has an ID, right? They all have the same naming convention. So like yellow SQ for yellow square and red SQ for red square. So instead of just mouse over, I'm going to put yellow SQ.mouseOver. And now this will trigger when my mouse is over the yellow square, not the actual element that this is embedded in. So that can create some interesting things. And it could be mouse out instead. So maybe instead of mouse over, it could be mouse out. So if we watch, they'll actually both be triggered by it. There we go. So my green square did weird stuff because I just started randomly changing paths. But you can see it works, right? Perfect. So that is essentially mouse out and mouse over with SVGs. If you don't know animate already, it can be a little confusing, but if you're already familiar with the animate tag, it's just really easy to add that in there.